My name is Bruce from Electric Asset. I'm here to talk about EV charging. One of the key elements that Electric Asset brings to the table is that we're really about information and support through a very long and challenging process for a lot of strata councils. Along with our experience and our ability to plan and manage projects, one of the biggest things is provide the information and background support that councils need, owners need, managers of strata corporations need, and that's where we fall in. First of all, when we start off with electrical plan and we look at our changing needs, when you consider a few factors, one is all EVs need to be recharged. Seems rather redundant or obvious, but just keep in mind whether you're commuting or you're traveling for weekends, rental car fleets are going to be electric. So everything needs to be recharged at some point, and it is recommended they're recharged on a daily basis for regular use. Recharging will be done in 3 locations, at home, work, or on the go. And the reality is about 80% of recharging will be done at home, much like cell phones or other electronics that need charging. Most of the time it's done at home where you have time available to you, and it allows you to be a lot more portable and flexible that way. Level 2 home charging offers the least expensive and most convenient method to charge for detached and strata homes. Again, you can never get more convenient and less expensive charging available than at home. So when we look at electrification and some of the uptake, in 2022, 18% of the new cars sold in BC were EVs. In 23, that jumped up to 21%. And really by 2025, 100% of all light passenger vehicles sold in Canada must be all electric. So as that trend increases, it's time to consider what does the strata properties look like? How do they compare to other buildings coming out in the marketplace that might already have EV charging as an option to new buyers? For existing buildings, another big concern is heat pumps or adding air conditioning, and that's another large electrical load. And then a lot of areas in British Columbia are looking at conversion away from gas to electric, which again puts further strain on the electrical infrastructure in the buildings and, of course, on the grid. One of the things that have come down the pipeline is a new electrical planning report that's required for all strata buildings in BC. So there's a lot of strata buildings that need to have an electrical planning report done. A lot of people are confused between what's the difference between an EV ready plan and an electric planning report. One is mandated, one is not. First of all, if you look at just the basic electrical grid, whether it's maintained by Fortis in the interior or New Westminster Power or BC Hydro, which is the vast majority of our province, you have the grid which they control and they install and upgrade as needed. Now, each residential strata building will have a substation or transformer that is hooked directly to the grid. So the grid feeds, this transformer feeds all of the electrical devices and everything that's in the building. Generally, how buildings are, when we're talking multi-story, the 18 to 80 floor strata properties, is there's a residential service that has separate meters. So these are private meters that are actually in the suites of the unit. They have their own meter, they have their own electrical panel, but they're connected to the main substation or transformer. Then we have what's considered a house service or house power, which would go out into the building and power things like elevators or common lighting, motors, fans, pumps, exterior lighting, garage doors, things like that. So all the common areas are under the house service. When we look at an EV ready plan or installing EV chargers only, generally the first place to go is to the house service. It's an existing service, it's an existing meter. And is there capacity there to add EV charging to the existing system? If there's not, then we have to go back to the transformer level. And as you notice, there's another meter. So now we're adding a new meter, which is a separate service, but it's connected to the same substation or transformer. And there can be a combination of both the house service and a new EV service, but that's generally what's covered under an EV ready plan. When we look at an EPR, an electrical planning report, how it differs is basically what it's saying is what is the entire load on the main substation or transformer. So all the loads considered, all the residential, all the house, if there's EV charging, all of it collected together, because basically what they're trying to do is what is the load currently on the grid and how much more capacity is left in that building to do whatever you want to do, whether that's heat pumps, air conditioning, EV charging, or anything else, what is available on that substation. When we look at it again, just to recap, this scenario here, looking for service for EV charging only, would be covered under an EV ready plan. When we look at the entire site in entirety, that's what's covered under electrical planning report. So we produce electrical planning reports. We've done lots of them. The EPR basically that we provide provides a property overview, electrical distribution layout, service sizes and meter and design, so you get an idea of what the layout of the actual property is, existing electrical loads and peak demands, two important elements, or what's actually running, what are the peaks and valleys, and how much demand does your building need. Total capacity analysis, so how much room, basically headroom, is left on your building's electrical system to add further capacity. We look at the electrical vault, so the main vault that powers the building, its condition, whether it needs cleaning or maybe possible upgrades. We take into account future demand considerations. So again, what does it look like with heat pumps, air conditioning, or EV charging? We review options for electrical demand reductions. Years ago, LED retrofits were a good way to save a lot of power and a lot of money. But most buildings nowadays are, but there are oftentimes opportunities to reduce the demand on electrical usage in the building. The key things to consider, especially when we're thinking about EV charging, is that EV chargers is likely to be the largest electrical load and operating cost to your building. It might not be in year one, but eventually, as more and more people adopt electric vehicles, it'll be the largest electrical load in the building. It is a significant load. Stratas are built the same as commercial and industrial properties. So unlike a single family home, so basically it has a very low consumption rate, but an escalating peak demand surcharge. This is driven by the power demand spikes related to EV charging. In a residential strata property, much like commercial or light industrial properties, the more energy you actually consume, the lower your rate. So you go from start around 14, go down to 11, down to 9, down to 6 cents a kilowatt hour. But what unfortunately happens is peak demand fees go up as your usage goes up. So these surcharges, or peak demand surcharges, can add an extra $80 to $100 per month to the Strata's electricity bill. This is over and above what's actually being used or consumed to charge the electric vehicles. So the good news again is EV charging is a discretionary energy. Everything doesn't have to get charged right now. It can charge over a period of time. So that allows it to be managed, throttled, and or time shifted to reduce energy costs. And again, all the systems that we recommend and design, they're designed to save money over the long term and be always the lowest cost operation to EV charging. So with a proper design system, charging can be the most convenient, cost-effective, and grid-friendliest place to charge. And that's why BC Hydro and Clean BC has aggressive rebates available, is they encourage charging to be done at home, not at work and not at the go, on the go. Putting in superstations like the Tesla superstations is very expensive, also very taxing on the grid, and it's only put in very special places where the grid can support that amount of energy being used. Employing an EV EMS that can monitor, work together, and control other electrical loads and be reactive to demand response can result in significant savings or even produce income for Strata. Electrical systems run by EMS, or energy management systems, is a key element. So if we look at key design elements for Strata property, These are things that council would need to consider. Again, you're thinking about all the people in your building. So the cost recovery system that you have in place needs to be fair, transparent, and auditable. If you don't have those elements, one day you're going to have problems with people complaining or even potential lawsuits over legal challenges to people feeling that they're somehow subsidizing charging in their building. Again, keep in mind fair, transparent, and auditable way to track energy use. So the only way to do that, obviously, is to track all electrical use that's being done for EV charging, much like having a meter on every vehicle. Ensure owners without EVs are not subsidizing EV charging. And again, ensure that it can be audited and proven that indeed they're not, that it's being paid for by institute a user pay. Up to a couple of years ago, it was very popular to set a flat rate of $50 a month and not really track what they were doing. Eventually, user pay ends up being the only way to do it fairly. You get some people that might drive their vehicle a couple days a week and others that are commuting long distances every day. And if they're both paying a flat rate, pretty soon they start to complain about the inequity of the system. The owner is billed directly. We encourage this kind of setup that they're billed directly for the power they use to charge their EV. So it's not going through a third or going through council or being managed by Strata manager because it's inefficient, ends up costing a lot of money to do it that way. And a lot of times the council will say, well, we don't mind doing it. And then another council comes in and says, why are we trying to manage charging? Well, it's not our business. We don't have time. And so you need a system that is capable of doing that. Use a third-party monitoring to manage all EV charging and customer support. I'd say the biggest part of that statement is customer support. Up to a couple of years ago, most people who were buying EVs were early adopters. Nowadays, getting a lot of people that buy an EV, they're not sure how it works. So there's a lot of, they plug in their car and the charger doesn't start right away. So right away they're calling and asking what's going on. And they need a lot of support and service. And you don't want them either bothering building staff or council on a continuous basis. That's why a third-party monitoring and service provider can cover all of that service needs of the owners. So again, prevent management, council, or building staff from burdening or escalating accounting fees or system management problems, customer complaints, or enforcement duties. You don't want to be caught in the middle. Third-party monitoring service provider will provide those services. The other key element is have robust parkade-wide communication coverage from day one. The reason we point this out is a lot of times a building will go in and put in a partial system with partial communication or communication coverage of Wi-Fi or cell. And everyone thinks it's EV ready and ready to go, but another person comes along to install a charger and they're down on, and they're in a corner and there's no cell or Wi-Fi coverage there. Suddenly it's okay, who's paying for the repeater or expansion to the communication? Instead of being at a couple $1,000s, now it's $10,000 or $15,000 because the owner now has to pay for expanding communication. We do encourage getting the entire 5-bar coverage throughout the parkade so that it's a kind of a one and done. And from then on, it's a fixed cost and a fixed knowable without council always being dragged back in to fund more of the infrastructure. Utilize an intelligent energy management system, again, EMS, to manage electrical loads and save thousands. We do have buildings that have 40, 50 chargers, and they're literally saving thousands of dollars per month. And they'll save this money forever by managing peak demand and helping ensure charging is done and all of fees are collected properly. Charging. So again, now when we talk about EV ready, what we specifically mean, what is EV ready? Have a property EV ready, it means the property has the complete infrastructure required to provide at least one EV ready parking stall to each residential unit. So if you have 100 units and 200 parking stalls, to have the building EV ready means you're going to pre-wire it for 100 parking stalls, not 200. You can always do more, but the minimum for rebates in British Columbia is to have one for each residential unit. So our base idea out of the gate is EV ready is provide one for each residential unit. So what is an EV ready park install? Basically, an energized connection point is provided for each owner. So even if they don't put a charger in today or next year, or they sell their property, it has the right to put in a charger at some point in the future, and there's an energized connection point for them. So again, they can do it at any time. It's a pre-wired energized outlet that they can connect to. The charging system is ready for 100% EV adoption on day one, meaning if you have 100 owners and all 100 want to put their chargers in, system's ready to go. Again, communication coverage is all there and everything's ready to go from day one. So we look at a project breakdown. Really, we break it into two categories. First of all, the strata's role or council's role, and then individual owners. And we found over time, this is the most logical and easiest place to demarc each person's responsibility. So Strata's role would be the installation of the electrical infrastructure backbone to support at least one EV charger station per residential unit. So essentially we have the parkade. Everything in red here is considered Strata's responsibility. So upgrades to the electrical room, whatever panels and meters and everything that's required, the EMS system, and then wiring out into the parkade. Once the parkade is wired and the backbone is in place, our systems are designed to be within 5 meters of every park install in the building. So if an owner does have 2 park installs, they can choose which park install they want the charger to go in, and it doesn't matter because all park installs have coverage. So it's a fixed amount to have a charger put in. So then when an owner decides they want to install a charger, basically what they do is they pay for connection to the nearest termination point that's pre-designed for their park install. Once the system has been put in place, there's no further requirement for Strata to be involved, and people can just add the chargers whenever they want. So one thing I'd like to cover as well is the charging levels. A lot of people say level 1 is fine. It's the equivalent of a trickle charger. It's good enough, or why don't we put in level 3? So just want to go through just a couple basic simple elements of the level of charging. So first of all, level 1, so that's similar to a wall outlet, or technically it is a wall outlet. It's based on 120 volt power. It can deliver 12 and 16 amps of energy to charge a vehicle, and it'll produce about 7 kilometers of driving range per charging hour. So if you think you came home and parked overnight for 10 hours, in the morning you would have picked up 70 kilometers of charging range during that time. This is very popular for hybrids and a lot of like low mileage batteries that were available. Now when you get into the 400 and 600 kilometer range batteries and a regular commuter, this just will not keep the battery fully charged. The other end of the spectrum is level 3. So this would be considered like superchargers. They range from 50 to 450 kilowatts of power. They'll charge over 100 kilometers per hour. The newer Teslas will charge 700 kilometers an hour of driving range. So really it's only limited by the EV that you have, not by the charging station. And they're very expensive, and you have to get permission from BC Hydro generally to put them in because they are taxing on the grid. So level 2 is the sweet spot right in the middle. So this is similar to a dryer or your oven. It's based on 208 or 220 volt power with 40 amp circuitry. It'll produce around 50 kilometers. Again, depends on the vehicle, because the vehicle itself actually monitors and regulates the flow of energy into the batteries and into the vehicle. The unit on the wall just provides energy. So this one will provide 40 amps of energy at 208 volt power. Again, in most vehicles produce around 50 to 55 kilometers of driving range per hour. So this is the kind of the sweet spot. Also the rebates, almost all the rebates available in BC and Canada are based on level 2 charging. There's some available for level 3, but really level is considered the home charging solution. Grid friendly, cost a little bit more cost efficient than level 3, which is very expensive, and produces something for the future where You eventually, if you need more recharge ability, it can do that. So the charging stations themselves, once a building has made the building EV ready, so it's got the everything that was in red in that earlier slide there, everything is done. Basically, what the individual owner, when they decide to put a charger in, what they do is they buy the charging station themselves. They pay for the electrical backbone connection, which is usually around 5 meters of piping and wiring. They get a cord hanger. The charging station can be mounted anywhere in the parking stall, but the cord hanger is the one you want convenient. So that's where you want to access and plug into your vehicle. We recommend a 25-foot charging cord. With that length, you can plug in at the front or the rear of the vehicle, whether you drive in or back into your stall. So it really doesn't, it's flexible enough to work with any vehicle. And also they come with universal J1772 nozzles. So they're not proprietary. They'll charge any vehicle sold in North America, include a Tesla and Audi that have their own proprietary systems. They require a mechanical protection device to protect the level 2 device, and that's the simplest and least damaging to vehicles is a wheel stop that just stops the vehicle away. So again, owners, not Strata, they pay for the installation and repairs. So the unit is theirs or considered theirs. They pay all the system operating costs, so there's no cost to other owners in the building. Any servicing issues or problems, they rip it off the wall or damage the cord. That's between them and the third-party service provider or us if it's an item that needs to be serviced on site. Makes it nice and clean and no further responsibilities for council after that. If you don't have a suitable wall area that can be mounted, if there's a column available in your parking stall and it's at the front or nose end of your parking stall, the charger can be mounted on the column. If your parking stall doesn't have a suitable column, we can install what's called an EV pillar, is a metal divider. Basically, it's a metal wall that the charging station hangs on. Wires are contained inside the sheeting of the metal, and it can support a charger on both sides. Both owners on each side of the pillar can enjoy a charger if they want one. So EV charging requests, how we manage the request process, which again can become cumbersome when there's hundreds of people involved in the building looking for chargers. We provide what's a dedicated custom landing page for your particular building, and basically it's dedicated to the owner. And what this contains is basically all the information about the EVs and the EV chargers. It provides the station pricing, payment options if available, and it also provides an option to sign up and have an EV charging station installed. So everything's managed through this landing page. As either pricing or information or policy changes, the landing page can be updated as well to make sure that everybody's getting the latest information. Again, post-project updates and notices, management of EV charging stations through the installation process is all managed through the landing page. I did mention energy management system. A lot of people ask, why is an energy management system so crucial, and are they used everywhere? We essentially highly recommend them basically behind the residential gate in any residential property where people are going to park on average for more than 2 hours a day. So this isn't public access charging, this isn't supercharging, this isn't even necessarily visitor parking. It's private level 2 charging that's behind a residential gate in properties where people are parking for generally more than 2 hours a day. What this allows, again, based on how energy is charged for in strata properties throughout BC, is our consumption rate that we pay is one of the lowest in the world. And if we use on average, you might come up around 11 cents a kilowatt hour. So everything that's on this graph here in blue is what's being consumed in the building to power things in the building. And everything in blue is being billed at 11 cents for consumption. Now, if you notice, the peak of this curve here only lasts for a small period of time, but strata properties pay based on peak demand. So This peak demand, if you notice the red line is at the highest point it reached. Now, it might have reached that point for 15 minutes during this 1 month, but that's the highest rate they take, and they charge you based on that high rate. Whatever the highest watermark or highest usage mark of that month, that's what you get billed, and you get billed $12 a kilowatt. This is a key point because the blue area, cars do not take that much energy to charge, and it doesn't cost that much money, but its impact on peak demand can be huge. So if we take a scenario where 25 electric vehicles, they all come home around in say the neighborhood of a 2 hour stretch. Some of them need to charge for 20 minutes, some of them need to charge for a couple hours. But regardless, for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, all 25 of them are charging at the same time. Each is plugged in. It's not looking at other EVs or what else is going on in the building. It's going to take whatever energy is available to it. So each EV will 0.6 kilowatts of energy. And what happens, without anybody knowing, is the blue line doesn't change that much because it's only 11 cents a kilowatt hour. But what this one incident has done for just one day during the month is it's driven up the peak demand on this building's pricing system. And this one event with 25 electric vehicles using 6.66 kilowatts is 165 extra kilowatts of demand. At $12, that's $2,000. So this one event cost this building $2,000 above. With an EMS, when we put an EMS system in, basically what we do is we take the last 12 months of your building's history, electrical history, and we say this building can run on that first red line. Let's say it's 100 kilowatts. So we set it at 100 kilowatts. So what happens is when the same 25 vehicles come in, the EMS says, okay, this is going to drive up peak demand. So what it does is it limits the amount of energy going to the 25 electric vehicles. Now, the electric vehicles may charge for a little bit longer period. But what happens is this event right here saved $2,000 for this one incident. And that's the value of having an EMS system. The system also tracks the average charge time per day in each building. So right now, the average charge time in a Strata building with cars is an hour and 37 minutes. So people are getting charged in a very reasonable amount of time, even with throttling during peak demand. And peak demand only does happen generally maybe once a day, but the real peaks usually hit once or twice a month. So it's not something that's problematic for expecting how much you're going to actually get a vehicle charged in. So if we look at just the main components of a upgrade, the white cabinet shown there, that's the EMS cabinet or the brain. So that's wired to the internet, and from there it communicates directly to each charging station using a radio frequency. The panels are installed. These are dedicated electric vehicle panels that have breakers inside. If you notice the black cables going out of the top of the electrical panel, those go out through the parkade, generally in the aisles or general areas of to again get within 5 meters of each parking stall. So this would be the electrical backbone. And then each one of these high voltage electrical connectors go into what's called a splitter box. And each one of these splitter boxes has a live energized terminal, actually 8 live energized terminals to support 8 electrical vehicles. So when somebody decides to put in a charger, we basically come in, we go to the nearest junction box, pipe down into the parkade, into the parking stall, install the charger, the charge cord, and the wheels stop. And it's very simple, very predictable. All that's required is an owner vacates their stall for a couple hours. We come in and install the charger, and it's very slick and clean. Rebate programs. So there are currently 3 rebate programs that apply to electric vehicles in British Columbia. First of all, there's having the actual plan done. They'll cover up to 75% of the cost of the plan, up to a total of $3,000. There's the EV ready infrastructure, which covers 50% of the total capital cost of the project to a maximum of $600 per park install. Each legal strata has a maximum that they can claim of $120,000. The third one is for the actual charging stations themselves. So each charging station can apply for 50% of the rebate, up to $1,400 per charging station. And again, each legal strata has a $14,000 per year limit on what they can do. So it really works out to be 10 chargers. After 10 chargers, you've maxed out your rebate. Now, one thing about the EV charging station rebate, it's currently available each year, and it's the government year, so April 1st to March 31st. So what we have is several stratas that we've done upgrades 2 years ago. In 2024, they applied and got another $14,000, and in 2023, they applied. So right now, the current plan is you can apply for 10 additional chargers each fiscal year, government year. So it helps with the cost for owners to install chargers. If we look at average cost, basically the Ready plan, you can get anything from an engineer, but the cost, depending on the company you use, ranges somewhere between $4,500 and $10,000. And again, the rebate available is $3,000. The infrastructure portion, they range greatly by buildings, but generally you're looking around $1,500 to $1,700 per energized stall. And again, the limit on that is $600. So almost half of the infrastructure cost can be covered through the rebate program. And then the charging stations themselves, depending on the type of equipment and service provider, they'll range from anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 for the charger to be installed, and depends what actually comes along with it as well. Frequently asked questions. One of the most is why and what are the key features of an intelligent EMS compatible? People go onto Amazon and look, and they say they can buy a charger for a level 2 charger for $700. Why is this one $3,000? One of the key elements with the charging station is obviously it provides power, and most high quality charging stations are very similar in their basic power. They're like a power bar. They provide power. There's not a lot of intelligence. It's just again, a power bar similar to what powers your computer. And good quality ones will last quite equally. Where they change or they differ and their cost increases is ones that have meters, built-in meters, so they can actually regulate and read and report how much energy's been used by that particular owner. Connectivity, so it has to connect through Wi-Fi, radio, or cell to a centralized station that can connect it to the cloud and report usage. And then in the models, it obviously has to have a EMS compatible controller, where the EMS can see peak demand coming on the building's load and throttle the charger down, which is a feature not available on most chargers. The other one is safety, and one of the reasons chargers are a little bit more expensive in Canada is if you buy an actual CSA ULC approved charger, they are designed to be safe and make sure that you're not electrocuted. It is a level 2 device at running at high voltage. You could get not only a shock, but you could actually get injured badly, if not killed. So safety is another key element. So how is electricity costs recovered? So the price of electricity is set by Strata Council. Unlike a lot of people believe that you can't resell energy in BC, you can. So Strata Council can set the cost that people are billed for the electricity they consume. Each station owner is automatically billed in the systems that we provide by the monitoring company. So they're just billed for the actual energy they use each month. The funds are collected and paid to Strata by the service providers. The cost of energy set by most stratas that we've done over the last couple of years is 15 cents a kilowatt hour, which equates to $1 per hour of charging when you're charging at full at 6.6 kilowatts. So very reasonable price for charging, but at the 15 cents, it also covers all of the cost of operating the system to make sure that there is no subsidies or subsidizing by either Strata Council or therefore other owners. How do owners pay for electricity? So basically it's the direct billing system by the service provider. When the owner decides to start using their charger, they basically put a credit card or debit card on file, and it's billed every month. So each month, the monitoring fee and the cost of electricity is automatically billed to their card each month. Tracking and all usage and fees is available via the app, so the owners can check up on what their actual costs are and their is. And also, Strata Council and Strata Management gets a report each month of total usage by all owners and total amount collected and total amount remitted to the Strata Council's account. So, what problems can be avoided? A often asked question is, first of all, prevent owners from installing their own dedicated charging station. If you're in a strata property, you're only going to cause headaches for either your council or future councils if you allow people to go it alone and not have a planned out system. The key thing to remember is electrical capacity is limited, so it's not unlimited. If you don't design a system properly, you're going to run out of power. So all capacity must be used for the communal or common good of all. So again, it can't be just given to first come, first serves. Provisions for the future need to be accounted for, and we encourage councils to keep in mind the last installation of a charging station, not the first few. If you've got a 100-unit building, first 10 or 15, pretty easy to do. Anybody can do it. What does number 98 at 100 look like if they choose to do? Is all the power used up? Does your parkade look like Swiss cheese now because there's so many holes drilled everywhere? Again, a proper design system will help avoid all of those type of problems. Is there an interim solution? Say you just don't have the support to go EV ready or don't want to take part of that type of program. We recommend consider installing shared charging stations in visitor park. They can use by owners who are not ready to invest in their own private EV charging station, and one day guests who also arrive and will be driving electric vehicles. And there are rebates available for visitor parking installations as well. So what EV charging problems has electric asset solved? So in our years in the business, basically the first one is capacity. We have a unique design and installation techniques coupled with intelligent EMS that allows us to utilize the available capacity in the building. Really, we provide an EV solution for virtually any strata property in BC, large or small. Smallest one we've done is 17-unit building, and the largest is just under 1,000 buildings, 995 unit building. From soup to nuts, that's our space. Future proofing, one and done. Again, the system we install is 100% EV ready from day one. Provide EV station to every owner without any further upgrades being needed. Stability and reliability, again, using a stable and reliable long-range radio-based coverage throughout the parkade. It removes the constant issues with Wi-Fi and cellular-based systems. In systems that were designed and installed by other installation companies that are based on cell and Wi-Fi, when we're called for a service call, about 99% of those service calls have to do with communication, not the actual charging station itself. And when a network charging station loses connectivity to the outside world or to the brain of the system, it'll either go off or it'll default to its lowest amperage setting. Most people think it's broken, but technically it's just lost communication coverage. With our one and done approach, it's coverage, 5-bar coverage everywhere in the parkade from day one. With hundreds of installations throughout BC and thousands of EV charging stations in operations, it is our testament to how well our systems perform. Councils can talk to other council members or people who have had a system in their building and had numerous new chargers installed, so they get an idea of what the installation looks like, but then also after service and how the system performs for their owners. The other key element is understanding the needs and requirements of Strata Council. Again, provide information and support. We try to simplify as much as possible a very complex and confusing bunch of information. A lot of people hear things from other people or read things on the internet, so it's important to get the basic truth and facts out there so people can make good informed decisions, whatever those decisions might be. So we work with council from the beginning to the end of a very long process. On average, when we're first introduced to council, it's about 9 months before like a plan and project gets either approved or ready to go to an SGM or AGM. So we're used to that space and we're there to help out. So what do we provide to any property in British Columbia? We'll do a site review. So we'll provide electrical planning report. We'll do an EV ready plan and capacity report for EV charging. So you know what that looks like for the building. We offer a recommended design and charging system with an outline of its features. We provide a budget or actual quote, depending on where it is in the decision process. We review all the rebates and incentives available. We present all the operating costs and recovery options and what are the ongoing operating costs of the system going forward. And that also allows council to compare our recommended solution to other solutions that they might have out there and have a look at the operating costs, never mind just the initial installation costs. Information sessions, another key element for Strata Council and committee members, as well as for property managers or Strata management groups. We do a lot of info sessions to give them the 101 on EV charging. Again, presented in simplified layperson's terms. We do a lot of town hall information sessions for owners. Tell them why the system, why the EMS, what the details of the system and the installation looks like. Then we also offer pre-vote information and support during AGMs or SGMs. A lot of time town halls, a lot of the people that are in favor or generally look favorably on EVs and maybe charging in their building, they show up for information sessions. And then the people that are vehemently against the project or have some misinformation show up for the AGM or SGM. So it's usually good to do a quick review of what's being presented and be there for a Q&A session to make sure that people are at least getting the facts straight and vote accordingly. Again, all of this is conducted at no cost. The only cost we have is if somebody wants a full electrical planning report done. There is a fee to that, but the rest of the services are provided at no cost to any Strata Council. What is required? Basically from the property manager, that usually it's either council president or council, but generally the property manager. First of all, provide the property information, strata number, the address and number of residential units. Help facilitate a site visit so we can send out our technicians. They basically need 20 or 30 minutes to visit the site. They need access to the main electrical room or vault, the main communications room, and then they walk the parkade. From that, we can do all the work we need to do. We also need hydro data. So we need 12 months of invoices for Strata's electrical service for whatever bills Strata pays, so we can do a analysis of the energy costs and peak demand of the building. And then we ask if any electrical drawings are available, that those are provided as well. That's it.